I'm teaching in a school in Killarney where it's a hotbed of GAA, but after a while they don't really care whether you're a footballer or not. You're just their teacher after a while, which is nice.
And then that must be humbling.
It's humbling, yeah, especially after a tough loss.
Boys give you a big off.
Yeah, they do, that's for sure.
How's things?
Yeah, all is good, yeah. Right.
Yeah, busy life. Football, work, family.
Busy, I suppose at times. You'd envy the professional lifestyle.
Just a small bit. We get to play at the elite level, which is great, and I suppose everybody knows they're inter-county players, and that is the pinnacle of it, or what people want to do, but there's a whole lot more to a GAA club than your senior team.
But even back to when we were kids, not that old yet, but still, your club was everything. Like, it was your community, it was where you made your friends. They're still your friends. What role did GAA play in your life growing up?
I was an at-risk young person myself. I was involved in a bit of trouble. I was a bit of a messer growing up way back when I was about maybe 15, I think. Ended up getting in trouble with the guards, and I remember getting brought into what's called a JLO, a Juvenile Liaison Officer. The JLO at the time, Tommy Lyons, brought me in with my mother. I remember getting a good grilling. He was a selector with Mayo years back. Before that. He was heavily involved in the Stephenites in our club, and I remember him saying, I'm telling you, it's two paths, one, keep going the way you're going and you're going to end up in the court system and X, Y and Z, or stick with the football. You're good at it, that's where the lads are. It's funny then, we won the county title this year and we've a photo, the two of us together, 17 years later or whatever, and it's funny that he turned out to be that kind of role model or that positive influence at the right time. I work in youth justice now, so with a lot of young people that are offending, to try and help them and support them on, making better decisions. When I went for this job then, it was actually quite funny because I put him down as a reference. And when I sat down for the interview, first of all, we just played G in Crow Park, and I got my ass handed to me.
Here's David Clifford and Padraig O'Hora, and Clifford's gone around him. David Clifford, goal! And Padraig O'Hora has tried everything.
And we went in and your man says, well, how are you keeping? I says, grand. He says, how do you think today is going to go? And I says, look, it can't go any worse than yesterday went anyway. And that got me through the icebreaker. And then he says, I see Tommy Lyons here, ex-JLO, great guy. He says, what's your connection with him? And I says, I just ended up in front of him years ago. And he nearly ended up putting me on the project that I'm now applying for. But it's funny where people crop up, isn't it? Where you can have that positive influence. Did you ever have any experience of that? Did you have any role models when you were growing up?
My thing, I suppose, was sport, and it was always sport. Whether that was soccer or football or whatever, all I wanted to do when I was 15 or 16 was to play sport and to try and play with Kerry. When I was 15 or 16, you're getting to the age where you're just starting to enjoy yourself and you have different priorities and things like that. I remember coming off the pitch after a game, and it was like a county championship game. It was a biggish enough game. We lost and I didn't play very well. I missed a lot. And I was getting into the car, and my mother would have never said anything negative to me probably ever in my life. She was just like, you can't combine enjoying yourself too much and football. You have to apply yourself more to it. I remember at the time it hit me deep because I was so disappointed at the time. But she was right. All I wanted to do was to play football at a high level. Yet how I was living maybe wasn't reflecting that. So while it did hit deep at the time, I'm very thankful that it happened, because I suppose it allowed me to fully commit to it and to really, I suppose, mind myself in the sense of going on to fulfil the dream that I always had. Obviously, I had role models in terms of sport, but I always just remember that from my mother.
Mammy's know best.
That's for sure, yeah.
Best. When your mother has something to say, it's usually for your best interest. It's always for your best interest, whether you want to hear it or not. I think when people look at the likes of yourself in particular, they'll think that man committed every day of his life to football, Monday through to Sunday, every year, non-stop, and it's always been constant. Yeah. And it's not true. It's not the reality of life, is it? You would have dipped in and out, you would have been motivated at times, unmotivated. Other things would have been going on in your life, as you said.
I remember when I was younger going to Crow Park to watch the All-Ireland, and you're looking at the people out on the pitch and you're saying, they're not even human, imagine the way they think. But then when you're in that situation yourself, you realise, no, that's actually not the case at all.
Yeah.
I'm fairly
little touch of imposter syndrome then.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So, and it's just realising that in the times where you're not motivated or there is other things that you want to do, so be it. Still, the football will be there. Come back to it. Don't fully let it go, because it's very hard then to Like if you have stopped something for a period of time, it is very hard to come back. So even if you're maybe less motivated than whatever, talk to people, maybe say you need a break here, I'm going to take a break from this, I'm going to try this, but still try and keep in touch with it in some sense.
I fell out of love with football. I don't know what happened, I just completely fell out of love for it, and I walked away from the club after the year we finished it, and I said I just don't ever want to play football again. But the lads never really let go, especially my closer mates. They just kept on my case, and it wasn't that they were like, you have to be with us, but they just, you knew they were there at a moment's notice. If you needed them, they were there. Sometimes an arm around the shoulder at the right time, like I said about Tommy Lyons earlier on, that conversation at the right time kept me on the straight and narrow. Can we do that for others? You might not even know you're doing it. And I know, like, you had a challenging year last year, and you talked about that, was like when the football was there, it soothed your mind, it kept you in it. It was it was a distraction to some degree, but I think every sport is therapy. Do you know, we hear a lot about that. Like mental health is a big piece, as we see higher rates of anxiety, depression in young people. I think a lot of people think therapy is sitting down like this, like me and you conversing. They don't understand that exercise is therapy. You know, football can be your therapy. It can be your safe space. For some people, it is their only safe space. I think that's probably another huge part of the GAA that maybe we overlook sometimes, that training session, that coach, that club could be the most positive thing going on in a young person's life.
It's just to be a part of something and have a structure and have a purpose, I think, is the key thing.
What they always talk about is connection, isn't it? Like, that's what we all yearn, be it at home or out in the community. There are people fundraising all the time to try and keep money coming into the club. There are under 10, 12 coaches. I've done a bit under 6, I tell you. They're challenging. They're wonderful. They're the best in the world. But, you know, they don't care if you're David Clifford or who you are. You're getting it straight between the eyes. So, like, Just another little piece I actually wanted to ask about was, you're teaching in a school. So we've got David, the teacher. We have, obviously, David, the footballer, then probably the most well-known footballer in the country. And then we have David, the father, partner. How do you find that? I know I find it a somewhat challenge, and I don't have half the pressures you have.
As you said, I'm teaching in a school in Killarney where it's a hotbed of GAA, but after a while they don't really care whether you're a footballer or not. You're just their teacher after a while, which is nice.
And then that must be humbling.
It's humbling, especially after a tough loss.
Boys give you a big off.
Yeah, they do, that's for sure. And in terms of the family side of things, then I suppose, look, you come home after a defeat or you come home after even a win, and sure, the lads at home don't really care. They need you to do the shopping, or they need you to change a nappy or whatever it might be. That's one thing that can be challenging too. I don't know, is everybody aware of the amount of time and effort and energy we put into playing inter-county football? Of course we want to be there. We're not being held against our will. It's a wonderful opportunity to play for your county, but it is an extremely time-consuming and difficult challenge, especially when we're not professionals and we're going working away too. Absolutely, and it's probably something that I think I and probably so many of us get the balance wrong, in that sense that while we're in it, we become so consumed with being successful that it takes up so much of our time and our focus. We're lucky with the family support we have around us, that they know how much this means to us, and they provide everything so that we can go and be our best. But then, like you said, there needs to be a bit of give and take there, in the sense that if I'm gone 4 or 5 nights a week, then I have to be able to be at home the other night. So it's
we're getting away with it. Yeah. So for now until this goes out. The GAA hasn't always been like my life completely. Like, it's never been the be all and end all for me, which it is for a lot of guys and a lot of girls, and I understand that. The reality of it is, especially for the likes of me, my kids and family have to take priority. That's just it. Other things can happen. I might be working with a young person that's having significant challenges or issues. That will be taking up your headspace and your time and your energy, and it will consume you. That can probably affect performance. Sometimes you might not be all there. I've definitely been at training, and I've definitely gone through months or weeks and months where the head's just not right. It's not focused on football because there's other things going on in the world. People are disappointed when the team they support isn't successful, and maybe they struggle to see that then at times where the person who has misfired or not performed or whatever, there's so much more going on than meets the eye. And it's not more when it happens to yourself, it's when you see it happening to someone else or a friend or a teammate, and you're saying, they don't realise what's going on, what he has going on. A big topic at the moment now, outside of football even, is immigration. I see it as a positive personally, but I know the country could be, you could say, divided on it to some degree. It is a thing. We've got loads of young people coming into our communities now. They've got to, integrate into the schools, integrate into our GA clubs.
If you come to a school in Ireland at 13 or 14, right, you go down to the Gaelic football team, you've never played the sport before, there's a good chance you're not going to be on the team. But then, is there something else that we can do to keep those people involved, rather than maybe sitting them on the bench and them realising, I'm way below everyone's ability level here, I don't really think I'm enjoying this. So is there something else we can do for those people that keeps them involved in the GA, because it's such a good way of knitting them into the community?
Like drawing the family into, I think, is a big piece. We're saying that when you do get the young person involved and engaged, that can feed back into the parents and get them involved too. So there's a lot to be done, in fairness, and there's a lot of scope forward, and I hope that we kind of make some positive steps over the next few years.
Yeah. What has come across a lot in this chat is the whole thing about sticking at it, and I suppose resilience. Being involved in the GA can help to build up a resilience. Would you echo that?
Absolutely, yeah. It's probably the safest space to develop it, isn't it? When you look at resilience, everybody wants to be resilient, but the realities of it is it's through hard times and challenge that's where you develop that skill. And we all don't want to have to deal with tough times out there, and you might have a relationship breakdown or lose a job or lose a family member, and that develops us as a person. But really, the sport, GA, allows you to do it, doesn't it? I always say this too, is if you can do a team sport and an individual sport, I think you really develop that skill set, because you learn how it feels to win and to lose on your own and as part of a team and in a safe environment. We talked about young people and the anxiety and all the pressures of the world that are coming out. We'll not change them. We'll not change the landscape that they're growing up in. We won't change social media. But what we can do is try and develop the social and emotional skills. We've had to deal with it. I've dealt with injury. You're dealing with challenge constantly. How do you stay hungry at it? You've won a lot now at this stage.
I suppose having a cause, and that cause is generally your family and your community and the people that what you're doing brings so much joy to. That's where my hunger comes from. And there's probably also an element of not wanting to let people down, in a sense. People who have helped you out an awful lot in your career down through the years. You want to be able to kind of give back to them, the coaches, different managers that you had down through the years that put so much time into us.
The big piece for me that sticks out is exactly what you said. The fact that you can make that many people happy, that you can be a small cog in the machine that makes tens of thousands of people happy. It's where else are you going to get that opportunity in your life? When our football careers end, when will we get that? Probably never. I think that's the piece I hold on to most, is for this little bit of time I could be a little bit part, just a small part of all of those people's happiness. We only won a county this year, but even that, what it done to the club was beautiful. It only lasts so long, and then it's gone again, and then you seek it out. And I think there's a message in there for people that are facing tough times or are challenged. Much just as the highs are the lows, even when you're in the depths of it. It goes away. It fades. It does eventually. Do you know what I mean? And we'll come back up and we'll rise again, and you'll get that moment in the sun again with the colours in the club and in the county, and that'll fade again too, and we'll go back. It's not a flat trajectory, is it? It goes up and it goes down, and it's just staying at it, really, isn't it? Just sticking at it.